Hello everybody, welcome to today's webinar. My name is Chris Barron.
I'm Scott McQueenie.
That is his name, real name actually. Welcome to today's webinar. We're going to be talking about tips and tricks within ConnectWise Automate. Some of those unique features that maybe you don't really know about or you may have heard rumors about, but you don't know if they're true. Well, we're going to kind of shed some light on that information. We're going to show you some just unique fun things that you can do to kind of streamline the process and just get you up and going and kind of, you know, make your life a little bit easier, because that's really what we're all about, is making your life easier. That's why we're here.
They're kind of like shortcuts, you know what I'm saying? You know, hey, here's the way you can do this repetitive action or a quicker way to do this thing that'll save you some time. We've been around the product for a long time, figured we share some of those things with you. Shall we begin?
I'm ready.
Okay, well that's us. Oh, now that's us, even better. Here's a rundown of what you can expect in today's session. We're going to talk a little bit about users. There's some cool stuff about users that you might want to learn. That's what we're going to show you. We're talking about clients, maybe something about scripting. The EDF portion, extra data fields, that's a big hitter. I really like this one. I think it's underused. He's going to talk to you a little bit about patching, and then we've got one tiny little extra thing that's not listed here. Let's call it a bonus topic, shall we?
Bonus topic. I like it. I like it.
Let's start off with users. We got a function in here called copy user. There's a lot of settings on a user profile. You've set up all your users, and trying to get your users tweaked and configured properly so they can do their job and yet they don't have access to things that frankly they might not need access to. Getting that all configured properly can be a painstaking process. When you're looking at the user, here I am on the General tab for the user named Tall Guy. And then I'm on the Permissions tab, and this is, of course, where you're going to be doing a lot of stuff, and this is where you're really focusing on restricting and allowing this user to do stuff. Since I'm on this tab, I want to point out to you right now the auditing level. I don't know, is my mousey working? The auditing level right there is set to everything on this user that I've created for this example. It's not set to everything out of the box. This isn't really a tip and trick, but if I'm ever talking to you guys about users and creating a user, it's not set to everything out of the box. Make sure if you create a brand new one from scratch, you set the auditing level to everything. But you know, now that I mention it, what I'm talking about right now on the top of this slide tells us that I'm talking about copying a user. So if you copy a user, and you copy a user that's already set to everything, you don't ever have to worry about that.
Ipso facto.
So some of the other things you can see on the user profile don't appear to be on the next slide here. Group access, primary clients. We're going to be talking about those in just a minute. So after I've gotten groups and clients set up like this right here, I've created a user. Well, if I've got 10, 15, 25 technicians that work at my company, I don't want to do that every time. It's a pain. I don't want to open two users on separate monitors and compare them back and forth. So using this copy user function is going to save you a lot of time, and it's going to help you get users created identical to each other. There's no reason to reinvent the wheel.
Especially when I'm testing the permissions, and that's a big thing. When you go through the the user manager and you're setting all your permissions, you're getting everything exactly the way you want it. All right, there's no reason to keep doing that over and over. Well, I want the, this user class to be this, this, and this, and I want to set all those permissions, and then I set this user to have all the specific ones that I need, and then you don't want to keep redoing that over and over again, and that's what this does. It's like, set it the first time, get everything exactly the way you want it, test it. Hey, this is exactly the permissions I want this user to have. Okay, there's no reason to keep reinventing the wheel, and that's kind of what we're talking about here is, you know what, hey, set it, test it, and then I can move forward with copying the user access.
And in that scenario, if I've already set that user to an auditing level of everything, already included. So you're just going to right-click on the user you want to copy. In this case, the user I had open was Tall Guy, and then you're going to right-click on him and say, Users Copy User. When you do that, you can see here are my 4 pinkish fields. Those are the only ones I need to fill out. I have to give them a username, I have to configure a password and confirm the password, and then I have to enter an email address. That's it. It's a simple step of create the user, set the permissions, copy them, fill out these 4 fields, and now that user can log in with those credentials. Real simple, but a huge time saver. Once you really get into configuring permissions and trying to lock it down exactly the way you want, you realize I don't want to do that all over again. Copy user, fastest way to go. All right, This one is one that we talk about. In my opinion, it applies more to our partners that have a lot of clients. In our training server, and you'll see that screen here sort of near the end of today's session, this is just our demo environment. We don't have a lot of clients. It's things that we have created for instructional purposes. But a lot of our clients get into the numbers of hundreds of clients, and most of our partners kind of live out of the navigation tree. So if I live out of the navigation tree and I start up here in the A's, well, my client list is going to scroll off the end of the screen, and that's going to be a pain trying to find a specific client. So what we often recommend, if you've got a scenario like that, is if you can configure your user, your technicians, to work with a specific subset of primary clients, it's going to make them easier for them to find those specific clients. You might break up your workload alphabetically. Hey, I've got 5 technicians. We're going to break up the alphabet in chunks. Each of you take roughly 5 letters of the alphabet. Or maybe I've got some technicians that only work on the larger or higher profile clients. If you divide your technician's workload up in some sort of way where you can say, I'm going to assign this user a set of primary clients. You're doing that right here on the Groups and Clients tab in the top section. Any client you have selected from the right-hand side under Available Clients, if you double-click them or click on the arrow to move it left, you can see it now. It's going to move over in the current list over on the left. You save that user profile. Now I have assigned primary clients to this user. In the control center, that user is simply going to right-click on the client's object in the navigation tree. You can see they're selecting Limit to Primary Clients. What that's going to do is it's just going to effectively declutter their screen. If you've got a whole ton of clients in your navigation tree and it's hard for me to weed through them and find the one I'm looking for, I'll set it to primary, make those changes and save them, limit to primary, and oh wow, look, only my primary ones show up in my navigation tree. It makes my work faster because I'm not hunting and pecking through a mass of clients. If there's ever one that's not in my primary list and I need to see them, maybe add them, or come back to this client's object, right-click and uncheck limit to primary. It'll show me all the clients and I can access them again. Just a time saver for when you have a lot of clients.
Yeah, and it's very cool for it's user specific. So, you know, if I have a lot of technicians, you know what, this is what you're focused on. It could not even be the same thing from week to week. You can go in there and like, hey, this is your primary clients this week. You can quickly, you know, change that users to this one. And so you're like, hey, limit to primary clients. These are the ones you're focusing on this week. And it's just an easy way for me to manage what my technicians, what my users are actually working on. Hey, focus on these this week, focus on those that week. Hey, you're new. Okay, we're going to give you some of the lower clients. We're going to do that. And then we'll kind of branch, expand your primary clients from, a couple, hey, till you get your feet wet and kind of expand that out. So there's many ways to do this from a support perspective. It's kind of up to you. It's really just for, viewing purposes, just kind of decluttering the navigation tree, which is very cool.
Again, sort of a theme of this session is this is one of those features that's in there, but we think it's underutilized. So we kind of want to bring it to you guys' attention, and maybe the bell goes off for you and you go, wow, that's really cool. I could use that. Thanks for pointing it out. We were talking about clients. Well, you can set permissions on the client object. You probably knew that, but in case you didn't know that, now you know. I can set permissions at the client level. So if I have a client open, you can see I've got the permissions tab. Just like all of our permissions, they are driven by user class. What you're seeing here, I've got the help desk users, user class selected. Now over on the right-hand side at the top, I can see what that user class can do for locations. I can read them, but I can't edit or delete them. For passwords, I can read and edit, but I cannot delete. That's what I'm doing with those sort of root objects related to this client. At the bottom, you can see what my computer permissions are for computers that are a member of this client. One that I like to point out to you, if I can get my little mousey pointer working here, send commands. Just a little sort of tidbit. Anything you do in Automate is basically a command. If you open up the computer management screen and you want to stop a service, restart a service, you want to open a command prompt. Well, command prompt's a different entry, by the way. But even things like inventory commands, so many things you do from the computer management screen are commands. If the user class doesn't have send commands listed, then they can't do a whole lot. But this is going to say, I want this user class to be able to do these things for the machines at this client. Okay, cool. I've got them locked down. I can see what this user class is doing. Now they're configured just properly. So think of it as the next tier. Earlier we were talking about I've got my user configured properly. I've got their permissions configured the way I want them. Now, I'm taking the user classes and I'm taking that a step further to spread that across my clients. Now I know what user classes are going to do what functions on specific clients. After I've got that set, I can take those client permissions and kind of repeat them across my client base. This one is a little bit of a process. So we've got sort of 4 steps, if you will. So, you like my little animation there with my green one? Come on, it's pretty cool, huh?
Yeah, it's fancy.
The first thing you're doing in this sort of process is we're going to clear permissions. I'm going to start with some client. The one I have selected in the screenshot there is called ConnectWise Automate. So I'm going to right-click on that one and clear the permissions. I want to start from a base level of nothing, and then I'm going to go configure the permissions for that client. So I'm clearing them out just by right-clicking on that client, saying clear permissions. Now I'm going to go configure them, and when I say clear, it says, do I want to clear them for this client? So it's saying I'm wiping the slate clean just on this one client alone. The next thing I'm going to do is go right here to the screenshot you see, and I'm going to set those permissions. So here I've got my help desk user class selected. What do I want to set it as? Make sure I click on save here. That creates a baseline, if you will, for this process of copying client permissions. The next one is clear permissions for all of the other clients. So notice how once again, I'm still clicking on that same client, ConnectWise Automate, and I'm selecting clear all permissions. This is one of the ones that is a little less than intuitive. That's why we like to make sure we point it out to you guys in this exact sequence, because this is the way you want to do it, because of the way it's worded and what it's actually doing. As soon as you see my next animation here, you see what clear all permissions does. It actually says clear all permissions for all clients, but this one. So that's why we started by clear them on this client, set them on this client. Then you're selecting clear all permissions, where you can see it says clear permissions for all clients but this one. Now we're going to copy permissions. So once again, I'm right-clicking on the same exact client. I'm choosing copy permissions, and you can see what my dialog box asks there. Do I want to copy permissions to all clients without permission? Well, if my previous step was here, clear permissions for all clients but this one, that means I just wiped them out in step 3. Now in step 4, do I want to copy all of these permissions from this client to all the ones that don't have any permissions? Well, they don't have permissions because in step 3, I cleared them out. Again, I feel like setting the user permissions and using copy user and setting the client permissions and using this 4-step process to copy the client permissions. These are some of the things that maybe you do when you reach a certain level of maturity. I mean, I can speak from experience when I talk about when we sort of started and we started setting up our environment. Sometimes you end up with too many chefs in the pot, and one of our education consultants might have changed it this way, but another one changed something else a different way, and we have 2 things that are not configured the same way at all. So on one user class, on this client, they may have one set of permissions. On a different client, they have totally different permissions. Well, that makes it real hard, even just to instruct on. So using these sort of things helps you standardize across your environment. Standardize what my users can do by copying users. Standardize what permissions are applied to the clients by going through these steps to copy permissions on the clients. Because you don't want to open up every single client and set the permissions and save it. Ain't nobody got time for that. Am I right?
You're right.
Am I right?
You're right.
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 And also, this is, all not only the specific user classes, but all the user classes you want to use at the client level. Because I know we showed the screenshot where we only had 4 and we were highlighting help desk users, but it's all the user classes I want at the client level. If I want to right-click in there and add an additional user class that's not in that view, hey, I want to do that as well. We're going to come equipped with default user classes, but this is also the time to assign all the user classes that you may have already developed and created in the user class manager that you want to use. Well, now you use them at the client, all the ones you want, you set the permissions for each one, and it filters out that throughout all your client base. So it just kind of, hey, let's start with one, get everything the way you want it, just like our users were. Hey, I want to set this user and then copy it. Same thing with the client. Get everything exactly the way I want it, tested it, beautiful. All right, cool. Clear it for everything else, copy it over, and then boom, we're done throughout our entire system. So it's kind of like that start small and boom, expand to everything you have. It's just going to save you time instead of going to each client and setting them individually.
I don't want to add a new client and think to myself, well, do I need to configure all these permissions? No reason. Let's just follow these steps going forward. We've got a couple of examples that pertain to scripts. If you're in the computer management screen, maybe I've gone in there and run a few steps to fix something. We hope you are. We are always pushing for our partners to be using the computer management screen. I can do so many things from there. I mean, seemingly almost anything can be accomplished from the computer management screen, and it doesn't interrupt the end user. I have full access to be able to see what they're seeing. I can do almost anything from there. So I fixed something from the computer management screen. And I realized this might be something I'm going to fix again. It'd be great if I could make a script from that. You can. So once you go to the Commands tab, you're able to see these commands that I have run to fix something on this particular agent. By having those commands selected, I can right-click and choose Create Script. That's going to create the script. It's going to contain the steps that I performed and that I had selected when I chose Create Script. It could be as simple as that. This was my fix. I want to be able to do this again without a technician having to go through and do all those clicks. I went to the Commands tab, Create Script, and I'm done. Or this could be your jumping off point, and if you're a little more advanced with your scripting, maybe you've taken like our Scripting 201, you want to start building some logic into it and say, let me do some error checking, error handling, let me make sure that the results were successful, then I'll save it. But still, you kind of had a head start on this script because all you did was fix something from the computer management screen and went and made a script right off of that. I didn't have to open up the script screen, make a new script, and start hunting and pecking and trying to find the steps that I want to use.
Yeah, this is one of the coolest things when I started here, and I'm like, oh my God, that's awesome, because
cool.
I know that if I can do anything or fix anything manually, I know if it shows up in that command tile, I can script that out. Whether it's, manipulate a file, delete a file, change a registry setting, anything that's tracked in the command screen, I can duplicate without having to manually do it. This is really one of the coolest things within all of Automate, is be able to automate that process. That's, there is a reason why we name it, Automate, because pretty much of the things you can do. So really one of the coolest things and one of the biggest tips and tricks we can probably offer you is that gift of automation. And you don't have to be a scripting guru right here, scripting guru not right here. But it allows me to kind of, I still can, no matter what my level is, I can start automating things. And this is really one of those key things that allows me to kind of take that big leap forward into scripting things and automating that process. Because I can attach this to a monitor. Hey, whenever this shows up, boom, I can continually, replicate this fix wherever I need it.
Every script that you write is one less problem you have to fix manually. And so you build up your repository of scripts, you're coasting, and you're automated. Okay, so a lot of you are using onboarding. If you've been through our implementation process, we would have explained to you the entire onboarding process that's built in to Automate as part of Ignite. There's an onboarding script that runs. If you can see in my screen here, highlighted, outlined in red, is where this is built into the onboarding script. You can see the name of the script. This is the actual onboarding script, and built in there in my particular instance in line number 11 there is a script called Initial Software Install Partner. This is one that is built into the onboarding script for everybody, and the intent there is for you guys to use this to call any software that you want to be installed for your client base. It might be something you do that says, I don't really want one ticket for a partner that for whatever reason doesn't have Adobe Reader installed. I shouldn't have any machines I'm supporting that don't have Adobe Reader installed. It might not even be part of my explicit package of offerings, but I don't want a support ticket for somebody that doesn't have Adobe Reader installed, so I'm going to add it to my onboarding process. Let's just get it out there.
Yeah, it's one of those things, whenever you get a new client, what are the things they continually ask for across my partner base? Oh, well, what can I add as part of the onboarding process? Because if we onboard all of our computers, well, we have a script that runs, and you can see right above that is system. Okay, we as Automate have our script that we run, and then we actually add one that says partner. You all are the partners. This is for you to customize what you want to run during that onboarding process. We've built that in. All you have to do is open that script up and add what you want. Hey, I want to do software install, boom, ready to rock and roll. This is part of the onboarding process. Just again, we keep harping on this. Whatever we can take manual, labor out of, that's what we're here for. Well, we do have that onboarding script that runs, all the onboarding script does is run a series of scripts. We have it built in where, hey, you know what, we have a script for you, just add it part of the process. That takes just additional steps out of your daily life. When you get a new client or get a new computer that has to go through the onboarding process, hey, get all of these things installed because every one of my computers needs, this baseline of software. Boom, done. Hey, let's go ahead and just throw it as part of the onboarding process and I don't have to worry about it anymore.
Hey, tall guy, what would it look if we had something that we added to this initial software partner script?
It would look like that.
Ha! So that's the script we're referring to. Look at the outline line there. System automation, onboarding, initial software install partner. And that's the script I have open right here. Initial software install partner. All you're doing is a script function. Run script. There's a drop down there and you call the thing you want to install. The one I chose happens to be one that's already built into everybody's Automate. It's an example. It's Adobe Reader. So by simply adding that line to the script and saving it, now any agent that gets onboarded is going to run that Adobe Reader install script, which if I had to guess probably says, check to see if Adobe Reader is installed. If it's not, install it. Pretty straightforward, but with adding one line to one script, now I've added that to my entire new onboarding process. Real easy, kind of overlooked. Okay, so we harp on extra data fields here a lot in the education department. A lot of the way that you customize and blow up Automate and really get the most out of it is with the way that we have. If you look at sort of our onboarding and you look at all of our Ignite stuff, very much of it is built into our additional fields. And we've got searches built off of that, and we've got scripts that run off of that, and that's where we're applying monitors, and all of these things are driven by extra data fields that we have set up for like a custom solution. So we want you guys to make sure you're using them, and a lot of our partners have set up extra data fields, and it's really useful, and we love to see you guys customizing your systems and making the most out of them. But what you can do with an extra data field is you can set a default value. I feel like this is one of the things that is underused, often overlooked.
Yeah, and a lot of partners don't even know that that's a thing because a lot of times they're like, oh, I have to open up, every client or every location. I have to check this box. And I'm like, oh, God, I wish it was one way where I can just do this and set this as my default and not worry about it. Oh, well, you're about to be amazed here, ladies and gentlemen.
Wouldn't that be great if you could do that, though?
That would be.
So here in the dashboard, you can see my nifty little screenshot. We're going to the config tab and then additional field defaults. I created a tab. If you can see on my screenshot, I created one as a location tab, and I'm calling the tab selected services. My thinking there was you've got a menu that you hand out to all of your new prospects or your new clients, and you say, these are the services I'm offering. Please check off the ones that you want. In this case, I chose Office 365, AV, and Backup. So they're going to choose which of these services they want, and that's going to allow you to make some settings at the location level and deliver those settings. Maybe you're going to deliver them through an auto-join search and a group and some scripts and some monitors. Pretty standard configuration to the way we're doing everything like with Ignite. Well, by setting these settings here, every time I add a new client, you can see, again, mine is location driven. I don't have to go, okay, I added the client, add the location, now let me go open up the location and check these three boxes because yes, they said they want all three. Let's give ourselves the benefit of the doubt and assume that our salespersons are fantastic and they got them to take all three services. We're going to default them to being checked, and that's what we do with additional field defaults. I made extra data fields. I created a tab on the location called selected services. I named them Office 365, AV Management, Backup Management, and by going to the defaults tab now, I'm putting a check in them. So they're defaulted to on. You're getting these services when I add you as a new client with my default settings. Okay, I just added a new client they said they don't need backup, they're okay with their current backup solution, I'll just uncheck it on that client at the location level and save it, but I don't have to remember to go check it every time, because as you can see here, on the location, on the info tab, here is my selected services tab, and because I had set them as checked in the additional field defaults screen in the dashboard, now when you open up a location, they are already checked. Folks, when I did this, I created these settings for this presentation. I went and created them in the dashboard. I went to the additional field defaults and saved them. Then I opened a location. The tab was already there and the checkboxes were already populated. You don't need to wait on that. It happens on the fly, and that's just a time saver. I'm onboarding a new client. I created the location. I'm going to assume they're taking all three of these services that I'm offering.
And one thing about this, it will not override anything that's already been set. So if you have certain settings at a location or a client level and then you set the additional field defaults, it will not overwrite anything. It will manipulate a field that hasn't been set, or any new field or any new location or client you set, it's going to auto-populate those. So don't think it's going to overwrite. If you've already set one, it's not going to change it to something else because that field has been manipulated. Easy for me to say. But that is the cool thing about it, is I can set this where it's like, hey, I can assume that unless otherwise specified, you're getting all these with my contract. And so when I create you, you're going to be this. Oh, you don't want those? Well, okay, that I can come back and I can take those out. So again, this is just an easy way for me to pre-populate any new things that come up, or if I'm brand new and I, create all these clients and I'm like, oh God, anything I have to do, repetitively, boom, set it, forget it, go about your day.
Mm-hmm. Another example I have for these is, here's an example where I have created a field that I called server address. So in this particular case, you're looking again at the location, you're looking at the Magic App Configuration tab, and the server address field I've populated, I went in once again to the additional field defaults in the dashboard and I populated it with must change. In this particular example, my Magic App Configuration was an example I created for our Scripting 201 material, and that's where I'm building a script that pulls data in from this server address field and incorporates it into my script. So what I did for today's example is I just went to that script and I opened up the field that's reading the contents of that variable, and look what I'm doing right here. I'm checking to see if that server address 2 contains must change. So I've defaulted it to must change in the dashboard. Now my script is checking for if it contains must change. What I'm going to do then is I'm just going to kick out some sort of error logging and a ticket, or shoot an email that says, hey, you ran the Magic App config script or the install script, and when I went and looked at the location, the server address field says must change because that's the default setting. Just go back and change that field, save it, and run the script again. So I can take one of my default settings and tell my script to look for that default setting, and that's going to be a trigger to say, got it, this isn't configured all the way yet, go set this field on that location, save it, and run it again. Okay, so my boy's going to talk to you folks a little bit about a couple of particular useful cases as they apply to patch management. Talk, guy?
All right, so here I always have this conversation when you first enable the new patch manager and you load the configuration and you start with these groups. And one thing that's always a common sore spot or confusion spot is when I open up for the first time, there's a lot of groups in there and I don't really know where to start because they're not put in any particular order. And it kind of looks like this, where I have deny groups and then I have different under patch contract, and I have all of this, list of groups that don't really mean anything to me. And so when we teach patch management, we always like to preface, let's start clean, where I have a list of groups that are easy to manage. And that's why I talk about when I say clear out the clutter, because I want to kind of put these in an order, but it's kind of a pain if I have to do this and kind of move each individual group out or delete groups that I'm not using. Well, there is a real easy way to kind of start off fresh within the new patch manager. And we have a simple list is The first thing I want you to do is clear all the approval policies from the group. So from this list, you'll see over on the right, the far right is approval policies. Clear all of those out so they all say 0, because I'm going to actually remove a lot of these groups and I don't want any policies remaining when I'm working from that. Then I'm going to open up in my navigation tree the Windows Updates group, and that is a parent that holds a lot of child groups underneath it. And there's a reason why I want to do that. If I manipulate the parent, then you know what? All of the settings will get inherited by the child groups beneath it. And what I'm going to do is change the type from patching to organizational. Now what this is going to do when I'm looking at the new patch manager, I go to that group's configuration, is all the groups that I see there are the ones that are typed patching. So I have a list of groups by default underneath that Windows Update parent group. You can see I've approved and deny rules. Those are all of the groups that kind of clutter up my, my patching configuration that most of the people when they're starting out, you know what, I don't use or I don't need, or they're old, and you know what, I just want to start off with something that's just a little more manageable. So if I just simply open up the parent group of Windows Updates, change that from patching to organizational, that's going to remove all of those subgroups that I don't really need and kind of cluttering up my system. So once I switch that from patching to organizational, I do a simple reload system catch, which is going to refresh all of the parent-child relationships. And then all I have to do is refresh the configuration in my patch manager, and I go from all of this list that has deny rules and then this rule and then another group that I don't really know to this clean, really precise system where I start with just a default group and then workstations and servers, a couple deny groups, and then my patch install groups. And it simplifies everything that I'm going from. And this really is one of the biggest problems we have for anybody upgrading to the new patch manager, starting with the new patch manager, is starting off clean and fresh. And this is one of the biggest conversations I always have with partners. Hey, let's clear out all of the clutter and let me start clean. Because I can simply go and I can bring in existing groups. You know what? I want this deny group, or I want to bring this client in. I can bring in additional clients, but starting fresh, starting clean is just going to be a simpler way to kind of get off on the right foot within Patch Manager, because it can be a beast, but I guarantee you, if you understand the group structure and this configuration screen, everything's going to be simpler. If you start and just remove all of the clutter and start fresh, it's just going to be that much easier. And I always kind of preface this whenever I do a patch management demonstration, especially when we're talking tips and tricks, talking patch management. Hey, let's go ahead, let's start clean, and I can add more groups later on, but let's start on a clean foot and kind of work my way forward. And really simple to do just by changing the classification of that Windows Updates group. It's going to just clean out your system and make it a little more manageable. And that's it. That's really all I have to do is just change that classification, reload my system cache, reload the patch manager. Ipso facto, everything is clear. All right, simple stuff here. Now that we're still on the subject of patch management, Mr. McQueenie mentioned that you can go to that additional field defaults and you can add your own and kind of start off with its own structure. I'm going to throw in an additional thing as I can manipulate existing EDFs as well. Staying on patch management, when you open up our existing searches and you kind of look at our group structure, one thing that a lot of people don't know about is all of our patch install groups, which actually assign the day and time that we're going to install patches, they have this field in there that's still looking at the location to see that enable patching workstations and servers is true, and it's that highlighted field. This is an actual extra data field that those patch install groups are using. If you're new to patching and you've never used this before, well, you've never gone to the location and enabled that field. This was built in the regards of, hey, anybody upgrading that's currently used patching, hey, you've already enabled it at the location. We're going to bring in all your settings. We're going to populate the groups. You're not going to see that big of a difference there. For all my new people, hey, why aren't my groups populating? Well, it's probably because of this search field that says, hey, we're still looking at the location. And back in the day when we used to use Ignite, we set everything at the location, but if you're new, you don't really know that. So an easy way to kind of bring all your systems up to date is, you know what? Go into that additional field defaults, location patching, and just set those, and those will set all your locations to patch, and they'll populate my patch install groups, and everything will be fine. All I have to do is navigate to config additional field defaults, go to my locations, I see my patching, enable patching workstations, enable patching servers. I check those boxes within the dashboard. I click save, I open up my locations, and boom, both my enable patching workstations and enable patching servers will be checked. So kind of following up on his examples where he created his own and populate them, you can still go back and populate the default values that are there. And I use that as an example for all my new people. Hey, there are some Ignite settings that you may see that are still being used specifically for patching. An easy way to set that, go ahead and do it globally. Go on the dashboard, go into my config additional field defaults. I can check 2 simple boxes. All my patch install groups are going to populate like I expect them to. Ipso facto, boom, we're ready to rock and roll.
Boom.
Boom.
Good stuff.
Yep.
The last little tidbit we have for you folks is kind of one that's crept in since my tenure here with ConnectWise because, well, I've been here quite a while. And you've probably seen it when you launch the control center, it wants to launch some sort of web page in that right-hand window. So I'm going to show you where this control for this lives in the dashboard. You can either turn it off, or perhaps if you would like to, you can set it to your specific custom desired web page. If you wanted it so that every time your technician's logged in the control center, maybe there's like a sort of a network status page on your intranet, or maybe your company's homepage or something like that, you can set it to something custom. Or maybe you really just don't see the benefit to having that there. You could simply disable it. Let me see if I can navigate this successfully. I'm clicking and talking. Okay, it could be in there.
You did it. Good job.
I know.
First try.
Not normally my best. So we're going to go into the dashboard right here. After we go to the dashboard, I think we're going to go to config. From config, we're going to the Control Center tab, and we're looking at Open Web Page on Startup. This is the default URL. So if you wanted to change this to something else, I'm just typing something in there so you can see that my Save button is now active in the lower right. Or if you didn't want it enabled at all, I would maybe uncheck it just to be on the extra safe side, clear out the field, and if I save that, nothing's going to open there anymore. When I launch my control center, I don't have something showing up right there. If you don't see any benefit to having that there, you turn it off. If you want it to be your custom page, you set the custom page, leave it checked, click save. This, of course, won't take effect until the next time you start up the control center.
That's your first rodeo.
Ah, well, maybe it is. So this question came up, and this was presumably somebody who had been working in Automate 10.5 or earlier. They're asking how to set the friendly name. They knew how to set the friendly name of an agent on the old computer management screen, and they're asking where could you find that meow in the new Automate 11 screen.
Right, meow? We're going to look at it?
We're going to look at it. Oh, sorry. Nope, nope, nope. All right, so I'm just going to open up any old computer. It's likely that I pointed this out during the presentation because anytime I'm talking about gimmicks within Automate, I always like to point this out. You can type in the agent number of some specific computer right here in the search bar at the top. I think the one I want to use is number 6. You press enter on the keyboard and it may open up that computer management screen immediately. I could have been wrong, and then you're having that doubt. Is it just taking a long time, or is 6 really not a valid agent number? Huh, looks like it was just taking a long time.
I had no doubts.
Thank you. See, this man's got faith. Love this guy. So the friendly name has always been an extra data field. On the old 10.5 and previous, all of your extra data fields lived on the Info tab. Now on the computer management screen in Automate 11, they can be found on the cleverly named Extra Data Fields tile. That tile is built in as part of the automation workspace. So I'm going to right click on the gear icon, Extra Data Fields, and right there on that default tab, you can see I've got friendly name. We're going to give it a name here. That was interesting. Okay, try that one more time.
Now we hit the save button.
We're going to save that. Now, theoretically or supposedly, I should be able to see my new friendly name in the navigation tree. It's useful for, hey, I've got tons of computers, and maybe the computers that I'm managing have, whatever the naming convention is that I inherited or that we create as we're deploying computers for our clients, but that isn't necessarily always helpful. I gave a name that ties this agent to an individual. That could be useful if you have one specific contact at your client that calls in a lot of tickets. I'm just going to name this computer with a friendly name of this contact so it's easier for me to find. Another example could, of course, be stuff like Exchange server, SQL server, web server, something that indicates that computer's role. So once you've changed it, you should be able to see that name in the navigation tree. I may have to refresh. I'm not sure. We're going to find out. Nope. So it was already there. It's taking hold. Here is now Tall Guy's computer. So that friendly name, easy to find under the Extra Data Fields workspace, which is part of the automation workspace. Well, it's Extra Data Fields tile on the automation workspace. Set the name, save it, and it's real easy to find in the navigation tree that way. Well, that's the one that we had.
That is the one.
Have we had any new ones come in since?
We do have one. Asking if there's a way to easily check and see which users belong to a specific user class.
Well, first place I'm inclined to start is I want to go to Tools and User Class Manager. I don't know if that information shows in here, but let's find out together, shall we?
Do not believe
Doesn't really look like it. This is just allowing me to change the permissions on here. So I'm not seeing it there. Do you have any idea if it's in a data view?
Not that I know of off the top of my head. I'm looking in my system. I don't recall it being in a specific data view, but you know what? Luckily, I don't have all the data views memorized just yet.
I don't even see users in a data view.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's
Auditing,
not in there.
not really. So I gotta say, it doesn't look like any place I can think of off the top of our head that we could see that.
I'm not thinking we have anything right in there that's going to allow us to do that.
So this isn't maybe a great answer. Users live in a table in the database.
Yep.
And I'm confident that it's actually called the users table. I think the user classes are linked to the users numerically. Everything in Automate's got a unique ID. So user class help desk users might be user class ID number 4. So I believe the membership is tied to the user profile by an ID number. So you could theoretically run a script that queries out that information and puts it somewhere for you or dumps it to a file. But I don't think there's any way here in the control center that I can actually see which users are a member of which user class. What else we got?
All right. Is the friendly name universal for all users or just each technician?
I believe it's universal.
I believe so too.
Yeah, it's an extra data field that lives right on that agent, that computer management screen. So that's going to be across no matter which technician logs in.
Yeah, because anytime you open up that computer management screen, it's going to be the same information whether or not I'm logged in or Scott's logged in. So if we happen to change that for everybody, you can change the way the screen kind of looks with the tiles, but the actual information that's stored in there is going to be universal across the board.
Yep.
Can I see the OS language version somewhere easily?
Wow. Now, I want to say that is going to be on my Windows information tile. No. Try that one more time. Okay. So here's my Windows system tile. We're going to go in here, see, does it tell me anything about that? I've got version of Windows. I don't really have anything like the language. So I don't know if this version information or the OS is going to indicate the language in that value. I don't have one that is in a non-English language. I wouldn't expect it to be under users, tasks, IRQ. I don't think off the top of my head that that is a piece of information I'm going to be able to see from here. If it would be anywhere, I would expect it to be on the computer management screen, just to click on show details, just to make sure there's not something else in here. This is just telling me stuff like the last user, who the contact is, asset tag. So it doesn't look like that's a piece of information that we can see within the control center. We're just batting 1,000 here.
Got to follow up to the user class. Does that mean need to go to each individual user to see what class they are assigned to? As far as I know, unless you run some kind of SQL query from the database to pull that information, you may want to check with support, because odds are somebody's asked them that question on how to get that user class. I've never been asked a question on pulling the individual user classes for each user. So that's the first time I've gotten that question. I would ping support and ask them if they've ever had that question, or maybe check the forums or Geek. There may be a way out there to do it that just can't figure it out right here on the spot. But I guarantee you, odds are, you know, somebody's asked support that question. I wonder if they came up with anything. I'll be happy to look into it, see if I can find any more information, but I just can't seem to find the information while we're sitting here. But yeah, I can see that, so you don't have to go through each user and see which user class and kind of keep your own information there. So there's got to be a way in there. I can't think of it right off the top of my head.
Yeah, you're definitely not the first person that's asked, but what else?
Yes, so we don't want to be naming our friendly names any, always keep it classy. So that's a good way to kind of go, keep it professional.
I mean, that could be, depending. Some people might find it humorous to put a little anecdotal reference in there. Well, like Tall Guy, it's not his real name, but it is in our department. Nobody calls him the other name, so it fits. See?
How do I get friendly names to show up on the data views, reports, alerts, tickets, anywhere other than the normal place we see it?
Now, data view is an interesting question. I wonder if it's something that could be added to the assets.
Don't know if it's in that list.
I'm not seeing it. Whoa. Got a little click happy there. Fast on, blah, 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 blah.
I don't see agent or friendly name. Oh, yeah.
Friendly name.
Friendly name is an
So
option.
I just picked one of the assets data views. I picked agent search. On any of these data views, if you right click on one of these column headers and choose field chooser, then I scrolled down here and friendly name was one of my options. So I guess friendly name should be on here and I should see the Tall Guy one.
There it is.
Okay, that's one way you can do it. You mentioned including it on a report. If you're using a report designer, well, certainly you could pull that report, that field into your report if you're writing a report within report designer.
As long as you have access to all those fields, I don't see why you couldn't pull that from the database.
Yep.
So yes, we do have multiple ways to get that friendly name added in there.
Which is nice.
All right, moving right along. Is it possible on LT tickets that new ticket info, ticket comments, responds and placed at the top in a ticket? As with older tickets, you have to scroll down a lot. Newer ticket info is placed at the bottom, but would be easier to be placed at the top. Is this
So like
customizable?
here on the
Yeah.
reading view, having the newer stuff at the top, is that?
Yeah,
what
as
you-
far as I know, I don't know if that's customizable. Because as far as I know, this is locked in and pulling the information from the database. This would be kind of, yes, that's what he means. Not that I'm aware of. Again, that would probably be a question for support. I've never seen us be able to move this information because it's locked into this screen.
I also have not seen anything where you could change that order.
Yeah, because all of that's kind of, it's kind of, you know, screen locked in there. I don't think so, but I'm not the de facto person. You may want to ask somebody in support because off the top of my head, I don't know how you would go about doing that because that's in the actual design of the screen. And it's just populating the different sections with the data. I wouldn't know how to do that without changing the layout. So I'm going to go with tentative no on that one. I don't think there's a way to do that within this interface.
Give that a solid maybe not.
Yeah. All right, so in Patch Manager, I was told it's best practice to put an action on all updates. We have created 7 approval policies. So I make a change to one policy. Is there a way to copy the change to the other policies? So can we get a little more clarification? But practice put an action on all updates. Yes, I agree that you either want, what we typically tell people is on our like baseline or default group that we want a classification on all our patches. And the reason we do that is it's easy to sort through and I can use that, the red dot that's up there and it'll tell me if I have any new patches I need to make a decision on. So we try to kind of limit that to one approval policy that kind of outlines our baseline. So if I go in there to my baseline, my default policy, and I say, hey, I either approve it or I ignore it, it clears that up. And then on any other policies that don't fit that, then I just have to go through and make a decision that's, you know, not on my baseline. So I don't think you have to go through each policy and make that same change unless you have different machines that are going to be in each one of those groups. Because what we don't want to do is we don't want to kind of have our groups, our agents in multiple groups, and then I'm assigning policies that are all doing the same thing. That's what we don't want to do. Case in point where I create a group and it's got all my clients and this client A, client B, client C, client D, and then I apply approval policy that says, you know what, approve all critical updates. And then this client will apply it here, apply it here, apply it here, apply it here. So you're essentially just applying the same approval policy on the client when, you know what, I can kind of do that in mass and it's going to clear up my system and kind of save the processor. So if I use that default group and use that as my baseline and I kind of handle most of them there and then I just have exclusion groups after that and I just want to kind of put those approval policies, anything that's different from that default policy, and that'll keep me from having to do that over and over and over again, because what you're going to end up doing if you kind of do this on each one and every approval policy is it's going to go through the list and I'm going to take these, I'm going to take all the approvals and I'm going to apply them. And then the next one, I'm going to apply them again. So if I keep using the same approvals on each policy, all I'm doing is just reapplying the same policies over and over and over again. And if I'm not differing the agents that I'm applying to, then it's a waste of my time. I'm wasting the processor because the server is going to do that every 30 minutes. And if you have it processing the same patches over and over again, you're killing your server. So what I suggest is just create that global policy, and then any changes that you have to that global policy is create the policies and just create the policy to kind of mimic that. The way our system is set up, and in the video I showed you a quick way to kind of organize your patch groups, is we have that default policy that's going to be my baseline, and then anything for servers and workstations that kind of don't adhere to that default, well, I'm going to apply it to my workstation, I'll apply it to my servers. That's an easy way to kind of like jumping off point. And then if I have any other areas where I just want to differentiate between servers and workstations, then that's when I create a new group and I kind of build that structure that way. That's why that organization kind of laid out that way. So it gives me that baseline. Okay, I can handle a lot of my patches here. And then, okay, servers and then workstations, and then kind of add to that moving forward. And then I'll have all of my deny groups. My deny groups are only going to be patch specific, so I don't want to assign a bunch of different policies to my deny groups because I wanted the deny patches, individually, like specifically a KB or a .NET or Internet Explorer update, something like that specific, and I put my devices in there. So I know I kind of circled around, but there's a lot to that, and there wasn't really a simple question. If I make a change to one policy, is a way to copy that change. You don't really want to copy your same policies over and over again because you're going to get in that habit where I've seen people, well, I'll just create all these groups and I'll just apply the same policy over and over again. That's overkill, and I don't want you to get in that habit. So trying to kind of readdress how you're using your groups is try to kind of build that platform out.
So it's almost like if you're thinking about applying the same approvals to another group, you got to ask yourself why. I mean, it's already being done in one policy. Let's do all my approvals there. And so what would be the benefit to mirroring them and copying them to another group?
Yep. And then we have another follow-up. I have machines in a separate group and assigned to not update Adobe, then another group for Java. Yeah, and that would be the one-off. Those, I would treat those kind of like a deny group, where I'm specifically either not updating Adobe, where I create that group and I assign the policy specifically for that, because that is, an exception to the rule. Same thing with Java. Hey, if I have devices I specifically don't want something on, then I create, hey, this is my do not update Adobe, do not update Java, and I put the specific devices I want in there, and then I create the policy to match that specific device, where I'm denying that or I'm locking into a specific version. I want to apply it there. So I don't want to kind of apply that all over the place. I want to create that exception to the rule, and I want to handle those specifically for those devices. Now, specifically for deny, the reason I want to do that is if I start putting a deny on my default policy or either my servers or workstation section, well, that limits my ability to ever, approve that, because deny is going to be my trump card. I can't override a deny. If I deny it globally, then I can't have another subset. I was like, oh, but it's okay, I can install it here. I got to work backwards, where I create my specific deny. I create that group and I put the devices specifically in that I want to deny, and then I can approve it on my workstation or servers or anywhere else, and just keep it from installing on those devices. So that's your exception to the rule, where I create a specific rule to not update Adobe, not update Java.
Straightforward to me.
Yeah.
Nothing to it. What else we got?
All right, how do I make a new tab and add remove EDF fields? I saw you change the defaults in the dashboard, but not see how you made them. So as he's going through there, I'll kind of walk you through this. If you don't see, I want to change, as you're getting through this, is you see when I go to my extra data fields, I have that list of that navigation panel on the left. If I don't see the tab that I want, when I'm in here, like you see that tab field, if I don't see the one that I want to put it in, anytime I just add a name to that, it adds it to that navigation field on the left. So if you're creating your own, and there you go, you can see it right there, tab is tall guy tab. If that tab exists, when you click on it, it's going to put it in that list. If it doesn't exist, whatever you put here, when you save it, it's going to build it and put that extra data field under that tab. So it's part of the process as we go through there, and if you design the EDF and you make the field type whatever you want, and then that tab drop down, if you drop that down, it'll show you the existing tabs that you have. If you want to customize it, call it whatever you want, tall guy tab, you put it in there and it'll build it if it's not there.
Easy peasy.
All right.
What else?
We got rolling. We got a couple head scratchers there, but now we're moving. All right. Anything else out there in Radio Land?
I remember prior to 11, the tab wouldn't show if you didn't have a value for it. Do you know if it works the same way in 11?
If you just create the tab but you don't create an EDF, I don't think so. I don't know. Just to try and create the tab. I haven't tried that in the new format. So I don't know why it would work if they kept the change, because the only reason it's going to put there is because it has something to put there.
Right.
And I don't recall seeing any tabs that are blank. So I don't know. Just thinking it out loud. So if you don't see it there, well, create an extra data field in there, and then you'll have your answer.
Tall Guy tab is not our intellectual property. You're welcome to use it on your server installation. Please do, actually.
Oh, I haven't copyrighted that
Nope.
just yet.
We're sharing.
But keep it clean if you're going to use my name on a tab. Hey, don't name it like Jerk4, like the friendly name that we had a comment about earlier. All right. Do I faintly hear users tapping away, writing in questions as we're sitting here, opening it up? Anyone?
Anyone?
Bueller? Bueller? Well, Scott, I don't have any questions. Oh, we got one. See, I know I heard something.
Stop the presses.
Is there a default for something other than EDF? Not sure.
So EDFs can have a default.
For example,
I can create the
always
EDF.
setting patch settings. Are you talking about like the additional fields defaults? I know we kind of use that as an example. Or are you talking about creating an extra data field other than patching? Because the answer to both is yes. So additional fields defaults, where it's on its screen now, you can see that I have my computers, locations, clients, any existing extra data fields that I have in those sections, I can modify. If I add it there, they'll still show up as an extra data field. So I can manipulate those values. So if, regardless of whether it's one you built or one that's defaulted in there, if you go to that additional field defaults and you go to that right section where it's computers, locations, clients, you find that, you can manipulate it. And any values that doesn't have a value in it, or any new locations or clients that are created should populate that data moving forward. Does the ConnectWise Automate robot do birthday parties? Art. Art is his name.
It's an interesting question.
Have to. We had the same question twice. Somebody wants art for the birthday parties. Doesn't talk much.
Are we talking the kind where he pops out of the cake, or just attends and does balloon animals?
Yeah, don't know. Is it like is there a petting zoo involved? I don't know what kind of birthday. I guess it would depend on the birthday party.
I feel like he
what you
would be a big
what
hit.
you would want him entertaining.
Laser
for.
tag. I think laser tag would be right in his wheelhouse. Right?
Maybe a theme like Transformers or something. I think, or Tron or something. I think we have a little side action going on here. I think we could.
Totes.
I think we could totally drum up some business for art. All right, we had another question. We always set enable patching for Windows for each location. Is there a way to have that set as default? Yes, that's where you're going to that additional field defaults. And if my cohort will go to locations, up there, right there, and then go to patching. So right there, up at the top, you have enable patching workstations and you have enable patching servers. If you set those values, any new locations you have will have those checked. So that's specifically what you're asking for. Yes, you do have the ability to do that, which kind of pointed out that's one of the big things with the new patch manager is our default patch install groups are looking for that value to kind of like a carryover for all the people. that used the previous versions is like, if you turned it on for these, we're going to make that part of the search criteria for all of our patch install groups in the new system. Now, if you've never used the old system, you're like, oh man, I have to go check these boxes everywhere I want to turn this on. Well, if you're going to turn it on for all locations, well then just go ahead and do this, and this will allow you to kind of not have to go into each location and check those boxes. So it's a quick way to get that accomplished.
Boom, done.
All right. Ooh, when will the iOS or Android app support more management functionality versus only tickets?
That's the $1 million question, ain't it?
Yeah, I don't think we are the people that have that answer. That I would.
Seems like a roadmap product management question.
Yeah, I would ask, maybe filter through your account manager, or.
I know we still do have roadmap on the website.
Yep. So if you go to the website, check out the roadmap, or put in a specific request for an enhancement request, making sure your voice is heard for anybody on there. Just go into our site, go into enhancement. You should have a form that you can fill out and add that to the list. So yeah, I haven't heard an update on that. Yeah, I don't have anything on my end, my daily conversations. Not so much on that one.
Well, it looks like we have gone right up to our allotted time here, folks. Is there one last question? Or are we caught up?
I did get a thank you, so that's good.
And I thank you as well.
Oh, I thank you.
All right, you're welcome.
Oh, stop.
Guys, it's been a pleasure as always. Look forward to seeing you the next time.
Absolutely. Thank you for attending. Look out for more webinars coming to a studio near you. Bye, everybody. Take care.